Gracias, gracias. Thank you so much for being here. I can't totally see the audience, but if anyone's in the back, please come to the front. We're going to have like a small intimate talk, a small discussion, so please join us. It's going to be pretty informal and casual, and I hope that you can learn a lot from these wonderful panelists. And just to get started, I want to go ahead and have them introduce themselves. So go ahead, share your name, what it is that you do, and then I'm going to put a fun spin to it in a little bit.
I'm scared. Hi everyone, mi nombre es Elena Inurrategui, soy consultora de Salesforce para organizaciones sociales y universidades hace ya 12 años.
I'm Stephanie Rewis, and I'm a front-end developer for the last 18 years, now managing the design systems team, our engineering team at Salesforce.
¿Lo hago en inglés o en español? Okay. Soy Ángela Murray. My nickname. Angela Mahoney. Llevo 14 años casado. Yo trabajo como directora. Sí, aprendí a hablar español cuando no era casada, entonces siempre era Ángela Murray. Yo trabajo como directora de servicios profesionales de América Latina y tengo como 10 años en la plataforma, generalmente como project manager.
And something I actually learned from Angela's presentation earlier today is that you should sometimes talk to people not with technical terms, but in a way that they can understand it. So the fun spin to it is that I want you to explain what you do to someone or a group of people that don't know what you do, don't know your industry. How would you describe that?
Oh, that's hard. You started it.
So I'll finish it.
This is your fault.
¿Qué hago en términos no técnicos? Grito a la gente. ¿Por qué no está hecho? ¿Dónde está el dinero? Porque eso me hacen esa pregunta siempre, porque nadie entiende, bueno, siempre estás volando a tal parte, estás siempre metido en tu oficina, ¿qué haces? Yo pongo en LinkedIn que soy un cat herder. No sé cómo se dice en español, pero cuando es imposible juntar a los gatos, ¿no? Pero eso es lo que hago yo para implementar soluciones de software.
You have to do it in both English and Spanish. Otherwise, I have no idea what you're saying. It's hard because when I go to a party and people ask what I do and I try to explain, their eyes roll back in their head and I'm no fun at the party. So I would say the thing that I love is that I look for patterns and I look for ways to make things simpler and more efficient. And it just has to do with code.
So they ask me this question all the time. I don't think my mother knows what I do, to be honest. No idea. So what I said is like I go to nonprofits or universities. I understand what they do, and I help them. I help them change the way they work to make a better impact.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I understood that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And the reason I think this question is so important is because I think tech can be pretty intimidating. So when we do explain things in a very technical way, it doesn't open it up for anyone to join in, when really anyone can be a part of tech. And we were all actually talking by the pool, because, you know, Punta del Este, why not talk by the pool? And I realized that you all had very interesting educational stories. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I was a Spanish major in college, and I wanted to be a math major, but it turns out that while I understood math, I didn't have very good study skills. So differential calculus my freshman year was difficult, and I self-selected out because I didn't think I was smart enough. So I took the easy classes, if you will, languages, Spanish and German, and political science, with no idea what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until after I did my MBA, again thinking all business, because I wasn't smart enough for technology, I fell into it. It just, sometimes life happens to you, and my life said Salesforce. But it was definitely not a planned move, and it turns out that you can be good at it, even when you think you're not.
Yeah, I was too old for tech to be a thing, so tech was not an option. I was a biology major, psychology minor, became a nurse, became a travel agent, raised children, and then looked back and needed to get back in the workforce and didn't want to do anything I'd ever done. And kind of like I said with the patterns, looked at like, what does my brain like to do? I like research and puzzles and figuring things out, solving problems, detective work. And then I thought maybe code would be that. And I took one class and I figured out I liked the work, but I didn't like taking classes because they either went too fast or too slow. So I decided to teach myself. And I did about 15 hours a day for the first year, just doing tutorials, getting someone to let me build something for them, and just trying to never say no, to always say, yes, I can do that, and then figure out how. And that was 18 years ago, so.
So when I was in high school, everyone kind of knew what they wanted to do, and I went from like, I want to be a teacher, I want to go to space and go to the moon, and I always go switching. I never had any idea of what I wanted to do. So I started like 3 or 4 different careers in universities, including math for 2 years, economy for 3 years, psychology for 2. And then I just like, okay, university is not for me. Like it never going to work. So basically I quit university, and then I wanted to work at a nonprofit I really loved, idealist.org. They used to have an office in Buenos Aires, and I just knew that I wanted to work there. I love the work that we're doing, and there was this opening, like database cleaning or something like that, and I'm like, I can do that. I think I can do that. And I was hired to clean 5 million records in Salesforce. It was a 6-month contract. But actually, I was able to do it in 2 weeks thanks to demand tools. Then they donate license for nonprofits. Nobody knew that. I found out that my first day. I did it in 2 weeks, and then I look at my boss. I was very scared. I was like, they're going to fire me because I have nothing to do here. So I went there, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I have nothing to do. She was like, learn Salesforce. Like, just learn Salesforce and let us know what we're doing wrong. This was like 12 years ago. And I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. And then I started, and that's how Salesforce appears in my life.
And I think that's something so powerful. Like all of your stories, I think there's a lot of pressure on people to get degrees, but that's not necessarily the way that you should go or that the only way that you can go. I think there's a lot of ways to get started in tech. So do you have any advice from your career, from your learnings, from your life of how someone could get started in the tech world? Like what are some resources they can have?
Yo tengo hijas. I have daughters, so I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about their experience in tech being different than my experience. I was scared. We didn't have a lot of mentors when I was younger. Again, tech wasn't a big deal back then. So I'm very aware of what it's like for girls and younger women now to try to enter the field. And I think my advice would be, you know, if you're considering it, keep considering it. Don't self-select out like I did in high school and then again in college. But to try to get started, if you're thinking of recommending it to somebody else, and I highly encourage you to do that because women need sometimes more of a push. We have women in tech groups is a great way. Mentors, role models, if you see somebody, ask questions. I didn't ask, and that was a really dumb move on my part. It wasn't until I was older that I thought, like, I have a chance at this. And it's IT to me is people. A lot of people envision, you know, programmers sitting in a basement at a computer, wearing a hoodie, but it's not like that, right? Right, with a pocket protector. IT is people. It's relationships. It's problem solving, and the way you do it is potentially through code or configuration. But fundamentally, it's understanding people.
I would completely agree with that. And I feel like one of the things women bring to tech, maybe because of how we're socialized or whatever, is a better ability to work with people many times. I'm managing because I just naturally work well with people, and our more junior engineers needed more mentorship, and I agreed that it was the time of my career to help other people, but I missed the code. But anyway, but I do enjoy that. But you know, I think there are so many resources now. You know, 18 years ago when I was learning on my own, I was using like mailing groups where I would just pound people with questions. We were talking about something yesterday, which is, it is so important to ask questions. Do not be embarrassed. Like, find people that you can really just ask. But maybe that isn't in the business meeting at work. Sometimes there's a time to be quiet and listen and learn, and sometimes there's a time to just, pull things out of people. So I think, asking questions, and nowadays there's so many things like Code Academy, or, if you want to be in Salesforce resources, there's just a myriad of free resources and classes, kind of little code camps and things like that. But I would recommend for anyone, male or female, find a couple mentors that you can ask, questions and get advice on how to go.
And I will add something else. Don't only find a mentor, find someone that you want to mentor. Because it's someone, sometimes we think, and I think it for a long time, like I'm not good enough, I have nothing to share. And I have like an amazing mentor, her name is Megan, she's another Salesforce MVP. And when I met her, and we had a lot of talks, and she helped me build my company, one of the things she always reminds me of is like, she's not my mentor, I'm also her mentor. We're like in a mentor cycle, okay? So you have something to offer. So if you want to be an ally, if you want to help someone, find someone this year that you want to help. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a friend of a friend, maybe it's a cousin, someone that is struggling with her career, is bored in what she's doing, someone that you can help to maybe change her career path, maybe improve her work, maybe have a raise. So always remember that. It's not only about finding a mentor, but it's also finding someone that you can help, and mentorship also.
Yeah, I would add, when I was in these mailing groups, mailing lists where I was asking questions, I was asking low-level questions at first. And as I learned, then I asked higher level questions, but I kept answering the lower level people. And I kept answering and answering until a few years later I was the list mom. And I actually started my business that way accidentally by people that came in, owned a business, thought they were going to build their own website, realized it was harder than they thought, and then they would write me privately and say, well, you seem like you know a lot. Would you just build it for me? What would you charge? So I never marketed. I accidentally built a business by helping other people. And I think that it's kind of the give to get model. You just help unabashedly, and it comes back. That's my belief in the universe. You ask, you help, and things come back.
And I think along the themes of mentorship, which is something that's so powerful, when you're getting started, what are some tips for how to look for a mentor and how to make the most out of your time when you do finally get coffee with a mentor?
There's a Dreamforce talk about this. It's called Mentorship. It's given by Megan. If you want it, I will send you a link. And she says some amazing things. First, if you send me an email and you're like, hey, I want to be a Salesforce developer, or a Salesforce consultant, help me. And I get some of those emails. I'm like, how? You're making me think too much. What do you want? Ask me things. If you're going to ask someone for help, don't waste their time. Be precise. Ask what you want. Be clear. Ask for something that I can give you in 10, 5 minutes, maybe half an hour. If you want a coffee and we sit for a coffee, and we have this awkward silence, and we're like, hi. I'm like, why are we here? What do you want? And how can I help you? I want to help you. Just tell me what you need. And maybe small steps. And the other thing is, recognize your mentors. Thank them in Twitter. If they have a blog post, retweet it. Let's all be allies together. But I think those are two very important things.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, both for men and women, especially in our Salesforce world. It is such an open community. You can ask any question. Everybody is so willing to help. I was just hearing an exchange out there talking about code of I'll send you the code snippet. Not a problem. People are really willing to help, but Elena was saying, you have to ask, and you have to know what you're asking for so that you make the most efficient use of people's time. But people in this community are exceptionally open to helping, answering questions, meeting for coffee, quick webinar. We're really, really lucky.
We actually pretty are. Yeah. It's a great community.
One more thing. Yeah. And just one more thing. Don't expect one mentor to solve all your problems. Maybe you need 5 different mentors. I have a lot of different mentors. There have some people I ask when I have problems leading with people in my team. I have other mentors that I ask when I need to improve my code abilities. So have different mentors for different things, because don't find like one and just like ask everything, because you're not going to find like your unicorn. That's important.
Right, because nobody knows everything.
Right.
And that's a great point. I have one man that has always been at my side every time I need to negotiate salary or something like that. He has the best advice. He's made me do things that scared me to death, but I did them anyway. I have another woman that is just a fabulous mentor for like corporate people problems, and I can just go to her and be like, Jen, you know, how would I handle this? So yeah, I think that's a fabulous point, that you should have probably several people that you can ask different things to.
And they don't all have to be older. My salary negotiation person is 10 years younger than I am. She's better at it than I am.
And so you were actually your own boss for a while. What type of learnings can you give us, or what type of advice would you have for someone who's looking to start their own business?
Yeah, I did that for 12 years. Are you doing that now? Yes. Yeah. To me, the most interesting thing was, and like I said, I sort of happened into it. I didn't on purpose say, I shall be a businesswoman who will run my own business. I just, you know, got into it, and so I had to learn as I went. And one of the hardest things, I think, is the marketing piece. And I did a lot, again, of writing after I, you know, got going and learned enough. Then I started writing things, which scared me to death, to put facts on paper, you know, and then started speaking. And truthfully, that was my marketing, not on purpose. Just I really do enjoy helping people understand things and have that kind of aha moment. That just gives me so much happiness that I did those things to help other people, like people helped me, but they started my business. But then, you know, the other hard thing is how to charge. You know, then you've got other contractors, and so you're project managing. That's not my strong point. And then you've got to be the accounting person that collects the money. And, you know, there's a lot of pieces to owning your own business. So never think that your hourly rate is what you make. It is not. You should probably take your bid and triple it, and you'll come out about right. What have you learned?
That you can't do it all. Right. Like, just hire. Like, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to make my own website, and it's never going to work. Like, I never have time for that. Just hire, like, invest in you and your company, and that's very important. Like, you don't have to do every single thing. Ask for advice, like, learn from other people. I meet with other Salesforce consultant firms owner, and we all help each other, and that's amazing. We are not competition, and maybe we are competition, but we help each other, and I learn from them, and they learn from me. So be open to talk to others. Other companies, other firms are not your competitions. We are all in this together, and you can learn from them, and that's something amazing in this community.
Absolutely, and I just want to take a quick pause to say that we do want to take some audience questions. If you want to start thinking of some of those, we'll ask the next question, and we'll pass around a mic. But something else that I think we should talk about is any sort of discrimination that you felt at work. I, for example, in a past job, not at Salesforce, I've presented projects that have been approved by bosses, and I was standing next to a male coworker, and they turn to him and say, "This is a wonderful project. Thank you so much for doing it," while I'm standing there saying, "That was my project. That was my idea." Has that something similar ever happened to any of you?
What did he do?
Well, yeah, he wasn't a great ally. He didn't support me. He didn't say it was my project. He just said, "Thanks so much."
I had that exact same thing happen, and I still remember it. My colleague reacted differently. I presented a solution. I was the senior project manager, and we went into our internal client and explained everything. And I brought one of my admins along, a male, older than I am. And when I finished, our client, who actually was a woman, said to my colleague, "That sounds great. When can we do this?" And he said, "I don't know. Ask my manager," because he knew it wasn't his call, but he also, thank you, I keep like, it's like those little kid toys. Now I've gone too far. So that happens, and you kind of as a woman learn to brush it off and forget about it, but it does add up. I quit my dream job. I have a new one now, but years ago I quit a dream job because my manager didn't listen to me. So at some point I got tired of my idea doesn't happen, and then my male colleague, another project manager, would say it, and my boss would say, like, that's a great idea. I'm like, that was my idea. So I quit, actually. And in IT, we tend to be agile, right? So we don't document a lot. So when you get these scenarios and women quit, they take a lot of knowledge, and that's very expensive.
And it's funny because yesterday when we were talking, I was like, I really haven't had a lot of sexism or what. And then all of it starts coming back because you learn to just water off a duck's back because it is just what we deal with. And one of the funny things that happens, I mean, it's not really funny, but it's funny. So I was hired to architect the framework. I was the only engineer on it to start. And then as our execs got excited about the design system, we realized within about 3 months we had to hire somebody else to help me pretty fast. So we hired a guy who is my partner in crime, love him to death, great engineer. We get along, we collaborate, but when we go to meetings, almost without fail, people will turn to him and ask him the question when I'm really, well, now I'm his boss, but now I'm his boss. But you know what I mean? It's like we're in a meeting and the people will learn and say, hey, you know, what about this? And I'll be like, And then I've had other times where they're like talking to him like he's the engineer, and then they're like, and this is Stephanie, you're the designer, right? I'm like, I'm a tweakaholic. I can't design. I'll tweak it to death. So, you know, those kinds of things happen. And then I've experienced things at a startup where I was where I developed this entire plan for our CSS architecture and went on vacation and came back to the new team doesn't want to do this. They want to do it their old way. And I got moved to marketing to do all the tech and marketing instead of product. And long story short, within a year, I didn't look at their work because I didn't want the pain. I just said, let them do their thing. But within a year, a conversation came up that caused me to look, and they had done every single thing that was in my document that I still have to this day in a Google Doc. Every single thing is exactly how they were building. So, you know, it happens. It's very frustrating, and my job changed over that one. Like you quit yours, I moved. But, you know, it's just a natural thing that happens in our world if we don't have allies.
Of course. I work in the Latin American world, so all my clients are here in Latin America and all the people I relate to. One of the things I hate, and it's very small, but it's happening every single day, is that when someone is talking to me, like another director or an owner of another firm, they refer to me as preciosa, linda, cutie. I'm like, okay, I look young, okay, maybe sometimes. I'm a woman, but like, I need some respect. Like, you will never call another guy like, oh, cutie. You will never do that. So why you do it with me? You know, and it's every time we start a conversation and you're like, oh, hi, pretty. I'm like, okay, we are not going to have a serious conversation like this. And I still have to find a way of saying, hey, no, call me by my name. Because you will call another guy, oh, champion, you're amazing, or hi, genius. But you will never say that to a girl. So right now I'm dealing with that. In my daily work. Yeah. I have to like, every time someone says pretty, I'm going to have like a buzz, like, we restart this conversation.
You know, I will say, because you all go to conferences, one of the things that happens to women at conferences, and especially women that are speaking, is someone usually thinks, I used to be involved in the Adobe and Macromedia worlds very much, and people would think, until I spoke, that I was somebody's girlfriend, I was in marketing, working a booth, you know, whatever. We'd be at a party, they would never talk to me about tech. Then I would speak, and I would be the one talking about all the CSS, and then everybody wanted to talk to me. You know, and that is such a frustrating thing to just know that until you've proven yourself, you're seen as the girl that's just at the conference. So be very careful about that. Like when you see women at conferences, please assume that they are smart developers, admins, whatever. They are there for the same reason that you are there.
And also recognize that it's hard for women to walk into a room of, say, 50 developers and 2 men. that's difficult to do. It's very intimidating. So when you see women here, talk to them. It's isolating. It can be very isolating. So there are lots of small things that men can do to make it easier for women. And if nothing else, if you're going to get married, have kids, having a wife in technology is a great asset, because it's generally, I'm going to be frank here, it's a well-paying career to get into. So when you want to rely on your partner, have one that earns money. So we want more women in tech.
I like that.
And I think that's a really great way to bring in like male allies, have people support us. But what about women? How can we be better supporters and champions of each other?
She has the hard questions.
So someone talked me this a couple of months ago, and for me it was like, whoa. If you're in a meeting, if you're a woman leading a meeting and there's other women in the meeting, talk to them. Ask them questions first. Because sometimes we as women, sometimes we're like, we also go to men sometimes. So no, do an effort. And I'm doing that now. It's like, okay, there's like 4 men, 1 woman. I ask her first. And I do that effort to really recognize those small things.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And I think lifting other women up, whether it's on Twitter or in, in meetings, Greg and I have been half-time remote, so many times I'm in a meeting, but I'm walking on my treadmill at home, and, it's really hard to be heard. So and this goes for other people that are remote too, but especially women, when you're trying to speak and people in the room just keep going, nah, 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 say, excuse me, I think Stephanie had something she wanted to say. Defend the people that are being talked over. And that could be the woman in the room as well, very easily.
Yeah, we're not perfect either. We're not perfect.
No?
Well, well, speaking of not being perfect, one of the things that I've learned the most through the last 5 or 6 years working with other women in the Salesforce world is I would see women that, are their MVPs, this is before I was one, they write blogs, their hair looks good, they know their stuff, and I'm like, dang, I'm not like that. My socks don't match. I took my makeup off this morning like that. Because we're all trying really hard to, be good wives, girlfriends, marathon runners, who knows what you're trying to be. And it's really difficult. So I learned the most from other women that said, no, I don't have it together. I haven't done laundry in 2 months, something like that. We all have our own struggles. Stop hiding them, because that's what we all have in common, is none of us are getting it done perfectly. So stop pretending. And that, just learning that other people were like me, not totally together, was a huge confidence booster.
That's what husbands are for, doing laundry and cooking.
You heard it here.
That's my best wife back there.
And I think that's what you're saying is totally true. The fact that sometimes women have to fight harder, we have to work harder, we have to do things, we have to be moms, we have to take care of the house, we have to do the bills, we work really hard. And when do you sleep? When do you rest?
I don't think we have to do that. I think we've allowed society to make us believe we have to do all that, because the typical, the era that I was raised in, my mom stayed home, she baked bread, she even ground the flour, she made granola, you know what I mean? Yeah, she took me to gymnastics, she did everything and didn't work. And then we all, started saying we can have a career, but we were expected to do all those things too, and that's bullshit. That's just, straight up bullshit. And so, yes. And so, I think we have to be good partners, but we should expect equal from you wonderful men that we love. You've got to support and quit saying, oh, I left my dirty socks on the floor because, whatever. We can't do it all. You can't do it all, but that's why we have partnerships. And maybe we're single, and maybe we're still not doing it all, Maybe we want a life outside of those things. But yeah, I think being open and then hiring people. Get an IT job, hire a housekeeper, they'll do your laundry. Just, do whatever you have to do, but don't feel like it's you that has to do everything.
Do we have any audience questions? Just one? 2 minutes? Okay.
Okay, 1 2-minute question.
Anyone have a question?
Now they're scared.
I scared you at the last one.
Questions?
I am sorry.
I guess we can end with, is there any advice that you have for this group of people, for especially women or Latina women?
Have confidence. I know that sounds crazy. You don't just flip a switch and suddenly you have confidence, but you're better than you think you are. I can't speak on behalf of men, I'm not one, but as a woman, we're really good at finding every single failure that we have and then amplifying it. We're not that bad, so try to shut that voice down. You're better than you think you are. You're capable of more than you think you can do, so try. You know, if somebody had said to me not too many years ago, you know, someday you're going to be speaking on a stage in Uruguay, someday you're going to run a developer conference in Portland, I would have laughed hysterically, you know, but you just keep trying. So give it a shot. You're better than you think you are. Try.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that, when you see a job description, we were talking about this yesterday, and I'm going to say this is the 80-20 principle because I'm not going to lump all men into one basket and all women into another. But typically, men will look at the list of things that they want and go, yeah, I got a lot of that. I'm going to apply for that job. Women, by nature, tend to read the list and go, oh, I'm missing this one thing. Well, I'm not even going to apply. Don't do that. Someone once described a job description is a wish list. This is what they wish to have, but I just hired my first employee. Woo-hoo. It was kind of grueling because I wanted a really good human. I wanted a smart engineer, because a smart engineer, if they're a good human, I can teach anything to. So I want some basic knowledge, and then they can learn whatever. And I think everyone here should understand that you can't know anything in our industry anymore. So don't look at things as cut and dried. Look at it as a wish list. Go for it. And the one rule I made for myself, because I was 38 when I got into this, so I was older, braver than I would have been at 28 or whatever, and I said to myself, I will never say I can't. And that was the hardest thing to stick to, because it's so much easier to say, oh, she knows how to do it. Here, let's let her do it. You know, and instead I would say, yes, I can. Didn't mean I had done it before. I just knew I could figure it out, and then I would figure it out. So just trust yourself and trust your community to support you through it, and just say okay or just go for it.
I think that as a society in Latin America, we have a long way to go. We still have to send pictures with our CVs. Like, I know, yes, and they can still say women, like, or men. In the, yes, I know. Mm-hmm. So we still have a long way to go. We still have to fight. Join the fight. Like, there's so many things we can do in our places where we work. There's so many places we can do, changing the laws in the countries where we live, that we still have a long way to go. And whoever says no, remember that 50 years ago we couldn't even vote. So yes, we still have a long way to go. So be an ally, be active, be an active ally, and be an active woman, because we have a lot to change, and we can do it together. I think this generation is going to change the future, and we are doing it.
We're going to do it. And for me, and I think from a lot of people here, thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you for paving the way, and let's give them a big round of applause.